Right now, this image might not make much sense to you, but it's my favorite science graph ever because it's what happens when you swing a bat. Oh, sorry. It's what happens when you put a bat in a swing. And in case you were concerned, no bats were harmed in this study. They were all released the same day. So, you're a mustache bat. First of all, congrats. Second, you're gonna have to use your echolocation to eat about 500 bugs in one night. That's just how it is. I don't make the rules here. The problem is the world is a noisy place, so you have a few tricks up your sleeve. One of them is to make a wide sweep of frequencies. But the other strategy is to make a specific frequency that you are just really, really good at hearing. How good at hearing? As a mustache bat, your ear is physically shaped to be good at hearing that pitch. A mustache bat's inner ear is physically thicker in the exact part of the ear that resonates at that sweet spot frequency. This strategy is great because you only have to worry about one frequency, so it's a huge load off your brain. But there's a critical problem with this, and that's physics. Physics! Specifically, the Doppler effect. The Doppler effect is what causes frequencies from a moving object to increase as they approach and then decrease as they leave. It's why when you're driving next to a car, you might hear "ee," but if that same car passes you, you might hear "ee." Now, as a bat, your problem is the faster you fly forward, the higher pitch your echoes are going to be when they come back to you. And if the pitch increases, it's going to get knocked right out of your sweet spot. Nice. What? I can't hear anything. So this whole plan can't work. You're constantly moving at different speeds, so the pitch of your echo is constantly changing, and you can't change that sweet spot that's built into your ear. This whole thing is a wash. Unless you, as a mustache bat, change the pitch that you make based on your speed to exactly compensate for the Doppler effect, so that when your echo comes back to you, it's always right in that sweet spot. Nice! This is called Doppler shift compensation, and it's incredible! But arguably the bigger question is, how did we figure out that bats were doing this? Scientists put bats in a little foam swing, and when they swung the bats forward, they made this beautiful diagram. Those little red dots are measurements of the bat's pitch, and that black curve is the Doppler shift from the movement of the swing. And the pitch changes exactly to match the movement of the swing, so when you add them up together, you get exactly that sweet spot pitch. This is just such a beautiful graph. But some of you might have noticed something about this graph. Why is the pitch not changing on the backward swing? Over here, the red dots are a perfect mirror of the Doppler curve, but over here, they're a flat line. And the answer is so beautifully simple. Bats don't fly backwards, so they don't know how to compensate for that. And that's why this is my favorite science graph. When I first made this video about mustache bats and Doppler shift compensation, I still had one big unanswered question, which is, how are mustache bats doing this? But fortunately for all of us, when a TikTok does well, sometimes it reaches people who have published research on this topic as recently as last year, and sometimes they're nice enough to point you in the right direction. To break it down, the two main ideas are that these bats are either using an internal sense or external feedback, or if you want to get fancy, it's either an idiothetic or allothetic process. If it's an internal sense, then bats are using systems within themselves to measure their speed. For example, their vestibular system in their inner ear, which is how you and I measure movement and balance. Or their somatosensory system through the hairs on their body, which is similar to how some people lick their finger and stick it in the air to feel the direction of wind. But if they're doing it based on external feedback, that means they're rapidly adjusting their pitch based on the echoes they're hearing back. It's like having to check and tune your guitar 150 times every second. So the question is, what kind of experiment could you develop to figure this out? Are there situations in which one of these theories would work and the other wouldn't? And there are. One of the most clever ideas being, put them in a wind tunnel! If a bat is flying at the exact same speed as the wind pushing it back, its internal senses will feel like it's moving, but the echo feedback you got back would have no Doppler shift. Because, relative to the environment, it's not moving. So their internal senses say they're moving, but their external feedback says they're not. And, in this situation, mustached bats do not compensate for Doppler shift. They make the same pitch they would make if they were standing perfectly still on the ground. So, external feedback wins. We figured it out! But, just because an answer is cool doesn't mean it's the only answer. A study published just last year replicated the bat swing experiment we mentioned last time, except they made one change. They didn't put anything in front of the bats. So they had no feedback to go off of. And they were able to compensate for Doppler shift. Not as well as if they had feedback, but a little. So the answer is more nuanced, but it also makes more sense. A lot of organic systems like circadian rhythms work better with external information, but can function on internal information alone. All of this goes to show that a clever experiment sometimes means coming up with some elaborate contraption, and sometimes it means knowing what small thing to change.